Hey, this is C&D channel. I'm Chris. This is MMA for you. I'm going to be doing my predictions for UFC Fight Night 32, Belfort versus Henderson, which happens on November 9th. Overall, I'm actually kind of digging this card, mainly because there are a lot of good prospects on here, and the main event's pretty strong. I mean, you got Brandon Thatch, a really good prospect. Cesar Mutate is not a bad middleweight prospect, and even Daniel Sarafian isn't that bad of a middleweight prospect as well. LaFlare versus Santiago. I mean, it's all prospects versus prospects. Santiago, Ponzinibbio versus LaFlare, two prospects. Get to see if Honey Jason, how he's improving or not. Checo Badal is fighting, another prospect, in Omari Akhmedov. So yeah. Darren Cruickshank's fighting as well. So, yeah, definitely not a, I don't know, I like it a little more than I probably should. There's a lot of good prospects here. Some of the fights look like they'll be pretty fun, too. I don't see too many fighters that are really known grinders, you know. So, yeah, let's get started. Vitor Belfort fights Dan Henderson. Yeah, to get this out of the way too, both guys are on TRT, and let's face it, it's probably why they've been able to extend their careers as well as they have this late in the game. You know, Vitor Belfort has a 23-10 record, 16 wins by KO or TKO, 3 wins by sub. He also has 3 losses by KO or TKO and 2 losses by sub. He's 36 years old on a 2-fight win streak. Head kick, or pretty much head kick knockout wins over Michael Bisping and Luke Rockhold. Training with the Black Zillions. These days he's actually becoming more of a counter striker. He's not doing the usual Vitor blitz that I'm used to seeing from him. A lot of times he's doing just more of a counter-striking style as of late. Occasionally blitzing, you know, but he's more just finding the opening to blitz instead of just forcing the blitz. He's really heavy-handed, and his head kicks are really good, actually. He's been utilizing kicks a lot more in his arsenal as of late. He used to do it before, but, you know, he used to favor his hands a lot more back then. Now you get to see just a lot more kicks in his arsenal. His boxing is solid for MMA standards. He is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and you do get to see glimmers of that. Like against Anthony Rumble Johnson. The armbar against John Jones. You know, you get to see the glimpses of his black belt. Dan Henderson, 29-10 record, 13 wins by KO or TKO, 2 wins by sub. He also has 3 losses by submission. He's 43 years old on a 2-fight losing streak. Both split the decision losses to Lyoto Machida and Rashad Evans. Trains at a Team Quest. He has a really strong chin. He has one of the most well-known overhand rights in MMA. And it can do one-punch KO knockouts. Stand-up's good, but it's kind of regressing. I mean, he's kind of resigned. He'll throw stiff jabs, overhand rights, and inside leg kicks. And that's like it. That's all he throws sometimes. He does have strong Greco-Roman wrestling. Sometimes there are times I've seen his takedown defense not look so great. He has beaten Belfort back in October 2006 and Pride 32 by unanimous decision. I'm gonna go with Vitor to win this one, though. I mean, I just think as far as who TRT has helped more, I think Vitor has definitely found more of a resurgence as of late. You know, Dan Henderson has managed to stay in there, though. I mean, he's a really tough guy. I tend to actually underestimate the guy a lot. But, you know, I can't help but feel that he just looks older in fights. He gasses sooner. He's kind of, he kind of has turned into just more of a sprawling brawler type of fighter. You know, he just looks slower to me. I mean, the Machida fight, he looked really slow. I mean, the guy was just like inside leg kick, overhand right. Inside, like, I mean, that was like the only thing he can throw or something. And he missed the overhand right, except I think maybe once he got him with it. You know, otherwise, I mean, he just looks so slow. And Vitor doesn't look as slowed down as Dan Henderson does. If anything, he looks better than he's ever had. I wonder why. For both these guys, really. Next fight after that, we have Cezar Mutante Ferreira versus Daniel Sarafian. Daniel Sarafian has an 8-3 record, 7 wins by sub, 1 win by decision. He's 31 years old. He's got good striking, good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but questionable cardio. He got, I think, in a sense, like, the CB Dolly fight's kind of like the best and worst of what you'll see from Daniel Sarafian, you know? I mean, that guy did this really awesome, like, half-guard sweep, you know, when he was taken down. His striking was more of, like, kind of a karate style, almost. But at the same time, you got to see him gas, see him get a bit reckless at times. Cezar Mutante has a 6-2 record, 3 wins by KO or TKO, 2 wins by sub, 28 years old, on a 2-fight win streak. He's training out of the Black Zillions. He has a capoeira base with really strong kicks, and his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is actually pretty solid. The few times I see him use his hands, it's not. I mean, like he like pretty much dropped his last opponent. I forgot his name, with his hands, but a lot of times I see him get countered with his hands. Sometimes he's his hands aren't as good as his punches, just aren't as good as his kicks, and it kind of shows. I remember against Sergio Moraes, he'd get countered when he'd throw. You know what it is? He moves in a straight line when he punches, so he'll punch just kind of in a straight line, and he has a tendency to get countered when he does that. I think that's one of his biggest problems with his punching. With his kicks, he doesn't really have that problem because his kicks are at range. It's an interesting style matchup, though. You know, both these guys, good prospects at middleweight. They were supposed to fight in the Tough Brazil 1 finale, which turned out to be a pay-per-view. So, you know, it could go any way, to be honest with you. I think I'm seeing a lot more improvement with Cezar Mutante here. I think he also just has more of the upside as well. So I'll go with Cezar Mutante to win this one. The next fight after that, Rafael Cavalcante fights Igor Pokrajac. Well, Fejel is a former Strikeforce light heavyweight champion. He has an 11-4 record with 1 no contest, 10 wins by KO or TKO, 1 submission win by strike. He also has 3 losses by KO or TKO. He's 32 years old. Trains out of Team Nogueira and X Gym. He is a finisher. All of his wins are by finish. He does have good Muay Thai, some heavy hands, and some strong knees. His takedown defense has actually proven to be pretty solid throughout his career. I mean, if you watch his fights against King Mo or Romero Palacio, he was defending takedowns well, and when he was taken down, he was really good at getting back to his feet when he was taken down. I remember even against Dan Henderson, when he was on his back, he managed to actually get back to his feet. He did a half-guard sweep, actually. I believe he somehow managed to get Henderson back into a single leg when he was in half-guard, and managed to get Henderson down. He is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. His cardio, though, very questionable, man. When this guy fought Thiago Silva, I mean, the guy gassed in like the first round, and he looked flat. Part of the problem with Fejel is sometimes he'll look like a top 10 guy, and other times the guy just looks like, you know, a barely top 20 guy. I mean, he just looks so listless sometimes. Igor Pokrajac, 25-10 record with 1 no contest. 13 wins by KO or TKO, 8 wins by sub. He also has 4 losses by KO or TKO, 2 losses by sub. 34 years old. He's a good kickboxer with heavy hands. Which in a sense actually makes me worried for Pokrajac. I mean, like, quite honestly, I got Pokrajac winning this one. I think he's a better striker. He has a better Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu game. But the problem is, it's like, I don't know if it's mental or whatnot, but like, there's also that like small chance where you can fade. And Pokrajac, at the very least, to Pokrajac's credit, he is game. He's a gamer. You know, he's in the fight throughout the whole like 3 rounds. And he does have heavy hands, so that makes me worried for Pokrajac at the same time. You know, I believe when I think it was when he came into Strikeforce, he lost like Mike Kyle by TKO. You know, he ended up beating him, but then he had the drug suspension as well. So I mean, I'm going with Pokrajac, but like, if they didn't have all those other X factors, I would be a lot more confident in this pick. I'm like just somewhat confident in this pick, just because like I think he's better than Pokrajac everywhere. But there's still X factors with Pokrajac. Okay, next fight with that, Brandon Thatch fights Paulo Thiago. Paulo Thiago has a 15-5 record, 2 wins by KO or TKO, 8 wins by sub. He's 32 years old. Trains at Constrictor Team. Others that train there would be Rony Yaya. He's only won 2 of his last 6 fights. He is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Good in the scramble. Really resilient. Prefers the Darce choke. He actually kind of had a tough time against Tavares in his last fight. His experience really pulled him through, though. Brandon Thatch has a 10-1 record, 7 wins by KO or TKO, 3 wins by sub, 28 years old. He's on a 9-fight win streak, with all of those wins being in the first round. He is a finisher, and all of his wins are in the first round. Stand-up is pretty solid. He beat up, his last opponent, it's like Dustin something? I forgot his name. Forgot his name, but beat up his last opponent in the UFC. He's a prospect a lot of people have been looking forward to fighting in the UFC. He did really well in like the RFA and whatnot. One thing about Paulo Thiago is, you know, he seems to have, I don't know about regress, but he just looks a bit slower. You know, he definitely looks like a veteran these days. You can say in his last fight against Tavares that like experience won him the fight in a sense. You know, I think Thatch just beats him up on the feet. If the fight hits the ground, it could get pretty interesting. Actually, Paulo Thiago doesn't have the worst takedown game either. He actually has a pretty good judo base in his takedowns. You got to see that against like David Mitchell, for example, and a little bit. He even did an arm drag against Tavares in his last fight as well. So it's not like inconceivable for him to take the fight to the ground too. I think on the feet though, Brandon Thatch lights him off. And I gotta go with Brandon Thatch to win this one. Okay, next fight after that, LaFlare fights Santiago Ponzinibbio. Ponzinibbio has an 18-1 record, 10 wins by KO or TKO, 6 wins by sub. 27 years old. He's on a 7-fight win streak. Training out of Team Tavares. I actually didn't realize that how many, besides Thiago Tavares, how many guys in the UFC these days, many Brazilians, a lot of them came out of like Tough Brazil 2, or they came from like, they were former Jungle Fights champions. But a lot of them are actually training out of Team Tavares. It is his first fight in the UFC, though, so it makes me a bit worried. He does have some good kicks. I remember seeing that fight where he head kicked the dude to knockout. It was pretty cool. LaFlare, though, has an 8-0 undefeated record. 4 wins by KO or TKO, 3 wins by sub. He's 30 years old. Trains out of the Belmore Kickboxing Academy. There's another notable guy that trains out of Belmore Kickboxing. I forgot who it was. In his last fight, though, against Ben Holloway, he showed a really good clinch takedown game. His ground and pound was solid. He was always pushing forward, too. And he was showing good knees. I mean, his stand-up still looked a little, still needs some work. He'd kind of loosely throw those knees. But, otherwise, he looked pretty solid. His stand-up was solid enough. His clinch takedown game was pretty good. And he had good ground and pound. Santiago, with his first fight being in the UFC, got to see what his takedown defense is like. I remember seeing one of his fights, and it looked like he was being controlled in the clinch. So I got to go with Ryan LaFlare to win this one. Okay, next right after that, Honey Jason fights Jeremy Stephens. You know, the thing with Jeremy Stephens is he looked pretty good in his last fight against Esteban Payan, and it's his first cut to 145. He has a 21-9 record, 14 wins by KO or TKO, 3 wins by sub. He also has 3 losses by submission. He's 27 years old, training out of Victory MMA. I believe that's Dean Lister trains there, among others. Heavy-handed guy with a good chin. Stand-up is solid. And his grappling is improving. You actually see Jeremy Stephens really utilizing a lot more wrestling, a lot more ground and pound in his fights. Honey Jason, though, 13-3 record, 4 wins by KO or TKO, 8 wins by sub. 29 years old on an 8-fight win streak. Training out of Team Noguera. He has some solid stand-up. He has a good chin. You got to see that actually against Sam Sicilia. You got to see his stand-up there, too. He does tend to brawl, though. Especially against a guy like Sicilia. He's brawling a lot. His Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is solid as well. He hit that nice triangle choke in his last fight against Mike Wilkinson. You know, the thing is with Jason is that they were feeding him a lot. They kind of give him the Roger Huerta treatment. Just giving him a lot of guys that he's favored to beat. This is a really good test for him, though. I think he beats Jeremy Stephens. I think in the stand-up they're about equal. I don't know if Jeremy might actually hit a takedown in him, but like I said, Honey Jason's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is pretty solid. So I'll go with Honey Jason to win this one. Okay, next fight after that, Godofredo Pepey fights Sam Sicilia. A lot of these guys are going by their nickname as their last name these days, I notice. Well, Pepey has a 9-2 record, 3 wins by KO or TKO, 5 wins by sub, 26 years old. He's got some good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. His stand-up's average at best. I thought he lost his fight against Milton Vieira, and he lost his last fight by ground and pound. Jeez, I forgot. As well. Sam Sicilia has an 11-3 record, 6 wins by KO or TKO, 4 wins by sub, 27 years old. He's actually on a 2-fight losing streak. Trains out of Sikh Jitsu. Other guys that train out of Sikh Jitsu would be Michael Chiesa and Juliano Pena. He has a good chin, heavy hands. He's something of a brawler. He's always pushing forward and very aggressive. Unless Pepey takes the fight to the ground, I think Sicilia actually beats him up on the feet. Sicilia's pretty tough to handle. I mean, he's always in your face. You know, he did lose his last 2 fights. I believe it's to Honey Jason and to the Venezuelan guy, Maximo Blanco. That's not to say that he didn't get his own shots in there. I think he can defend takedowns from Pepey and beat him up on the feet, to be perfectly honest with you. I'll go with Sam Sicilia to win this one. Okay, next fight after that, Omari Akhmedov fights Thiago Perpetuo. Well, Akhmedov has an 11-0 undefeated record, 5 wins by KO or TKO, 4 wins by sub. He's never been past the 2nd round. It is his first fight in the UFC, and looking at his overall resume, he kind of had an overall weak level of competition. Thiago interesting prospect actually coming out of Tough Brazil 1. I'm actually pretty high on the guy. Even though I don't know if I really should be. He could just turn out to be a perpetual mid-tier fighter in the UFC and just in general. He has a 9-1 record with 1 draw, 7 wins by KO or TKO, 1 win by sub. He's on a 5-fight win streak. One of the things that goes against him, though, even though Akhmedov, it is his first fight in the UFC with Thiago Badal, he last fought in June 2012, so he's on a pretty long layoff. Like many Brazilians, you know, he has that solid stand-up with good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I mean, that's kind of is Thiago Badal. His stand-up's pretty good. His Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is pretty solid as well. I gotta go with Thiago Badal to win this one. I'm just more of it's just because I've seen more of his fights and I know what he brings to the table. So it's Omari. For all I know, he can be awesome. It's just I haven't seen enough, a lot from him. So and I'm going for the guy that's, I guess, a little more proven at this point. Okay, next fight after that, Justin Salas fights Thiago Tavares. You know, Salas really impressed me in this last fight. And then his 11-4 record, 3 wins by KO or TKO, 3 wins by sub. Also has 2 losses by KO or TKO and 2 losses by sub. He's 31 years old, training out of Grudge. He's a good wrestler, but I was actually really impressed in his last fight as he showed improved stand-up. His footwork was really improved. He picked his shots really well. Jeez, I forgot who he fought. It's that veteran who's Justin Riley. Yeah, he fought Riley in his last fight. He showed some really improved stand-up. I liked his footwork. He was using lateral movement, picking his shots pretty well. I liked what I saw. Thiago Tavares, though, man, he's been in the UFC like forever. He is what I call, him and Sam Stout and a couple other fighters. Matt Wyman's kind of there too. He's what I call a perpetual, or just like stuck in mid-tier purgatory at lightweight. And that's Thiago Tavares to a T, you know. He has a 17-5 record with 1 draw, 2 wins by KO or TKO, 11 wins by sub. He also has 3 losses by KO or TKO. He's 28 years old, training at Team Tavares. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Pretty good takedowns. His Muay Thai is improving, but his chin is not very good. He got knocked out by Shane Roller. I've seen him get wobbled a couple times. Got knocked out by Matt Wyman. Who else pasted him? Habib Nurmagomedov also knocked him out as well. So yeah, you know, the problem with Tavares is he just can't get over the hump. He'll lose to those guys. He'll beat a guy like a Stout. He'll beat, you know, geez, who else has he beaten? Some UFC newcomers, you know, beat some other mid-tier guys, but then he'll lose to other mid-tier guys as well, and higher level guys. So yeah, he's stuck in mid-tier purgatory. I think overall, though, he has the experience and the overall skill set to beat Justin Salas. You know, like I said, he does have really solid Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. His takedown game actually isn't too bad. He's good in the scramble. Stand-up's not bad per se. His chin, not the greatest though. But I think he can beat Justin Salas. Okay, next fight after that, Adriano Martins fights Daron Cruickshank. Oh, Adriano Martins has a 24-6 record, 11 wins by KO or TKO, 2 wins by sub. He's 31 years old on a 5-fight win streak. It is his first fight in the UFC. He did fight in Strikeforce. His most previous win was against George Gurgel. He's got some pretty solid stand-up. Daron Cruickshank, 13-3 record, 7 wins by KO or TKO, 1 win by sub, 28 years old. He has a Taekwondo style stand-up. He does have good kicks. I don't think he beat Eve Edwards in his last fight, to be perfectly honest with you. Nonetheless, still a pretty solid prospect. He has shown good takedown defense as well. Yeah, I gotta go with Daron Cruickshank to win this one. Daron Cruickshank to win this one. I think that, you know, his stand-up, like I said, he can utilize his kicks really well. He fights good at range. Has good takedown defense. I think it'll be an interesting fight, but yeah, I'll go with Cruickshank to win that one. Okay, and finally, Jose Maria Tomei fights Dustin Ortiz. Dustin Ortiz has an 11-2 record, 4 wins by KO TKO, 4 wins by sub on a 3-fight win streak. Trains out of Rufus Sport. You can always expect guys with pretty good stand-up from Rufus Sport. It is his first fight in the UFC though. Jose Maria Tomei last fought John Lineker, and a good showing. You know, he ended up getting TKO'd though. He managed to drop or wobble. It was either wobble or drop him. Actually, he's a 33-4 record with 2 draws, 15 wins by KO TKO, 13 wins by sub. He also has 3 losses by sub. I believe his loss to Lineker was the first time he was ever KO'd or TKO'd. He's 31 years old. He trains out of Reno Cal. Other guys that train out of Reno Cal would be Michael Falco and Luis Noguera. He has some solid stand-up, and I believe the Reno Cal guys aren't Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners. They're lucha libre guys, if I'm not mistaken. Besides that, he actually has shown some very good submission ability. I mean, 13 of his wins are by sub. He has some pretty even, and a lot too. Even knockout to submission ratio. You know, 15 and KO or TKO, 13 subs. So that shows some pretty well-roundedness. I'll go with Jose Maria Tomei to win that one. Okay, to recap, in Vitor Belfort versus Dan Henderson, I got Vitor Belfort. Cesar Mutante Ferreira versus Dano Sarafian, I got Cesar Mutante. Rafael Cavalcante versus Igor Pokrajac, I got Cavalcante. Brandon Thatch versus Paulo Thiago, I got Brandon Thatch. Ryan LaFlare versus Santiago Ponzinibbio, I got Ryan LaFlare. And Honey Jason versus Jeremy Stevens, I'll go with Honey Jason. Okay, on to the prelims. Sam Sicilia fights Godofredo Pepey, I go with Sam Sicilia. Omari Akhmedov fights Thiago Badal Perpetuo, I go with Thiago Badal. Justin Salas fights Thiago Tavares, I go with Thiago Tavares. Darren Cruickshank fights Adriano Martins, I'll go with Darren Cruickshank. And Jose Maria Tomei fights Dustin Ortiz, I'll go with Jose Maria Tomei. Okay, that's pretty much it for my predictions for UFC Fight Night 32, Belfort versus Henderson. If you have any comments, just leave them below. And that's it for MMA for you. Thank you guys very much.